All right, folks, welcome to one of the last sessions of Test Automation Engineering, which is API testing. Now, saying the last session is going to be understatement because API testing in itself is like 4 years of experience. So trying to compact all of this into one class is nearly an impossible task. But you guys are so time constrained and you need to go out there and get a job. We can't like spend the whole year just teaching this stuff. So it's important that we deliver the information, you take it out there, research some more, learn as you go, get the job. When you get the job, you're going to have plenty of time to practice the stuff and apply it. And nobody's going to know that you don't know the stuff. You're just going to be sitting in your cubicle learning it as you apply it and still making money while you're learning stuff. So that's the best thing. Don't wait. There's a lot of shortage out there in this technology. And if you know this stuff, they're just going to hire you on the spot. So adding an API testing experience on your resume or in the interview, if you're able to talk about it, gives you that extra boost in your interview job getting. I can tell you this, UI testing is much easier than API testing in some ways, but there's a very few people that know API testing. So if you can tell them and explain what you understood from API testing, then you become the top maybe 1% of candidates or 5% of the candidates. And for you to get a job in this industry, it's not going to be any factor at all. So what I have here for you is week 16. You've probably done all the way up to CI/CD through Jenkins class. And right after that, you got this lesson 32 called API testing. I also opened up something called week 17. Now, this is on your own. I will give you some information, some stuff, bits and pieces here. You go in and you research and you piece together the puzzle. But if I were to let you go out there and learn this stuff on your own, you would be so lost. There's so much information. You don't know where to start, you don't know where to finish, you don't know how to balance things, and you would never be able to understand the whole idea of what this is. So I will give you that whole idea. I will show you the path of what you need to study and how you can become an expert in API testing. So we'll start with this class here. This video you might see coming soon is going to be basically the video that I'm doing with you right now, and I'll post it here. However, there was a season when I did a video with some other batch. You will find that under the 17, week 17. And if you go to this API testing part, there's this video. I highly recommend that you watch this video. There's a PowerPoint slideshow as well. There's additional videos. Watch this. This one is mine, so you should watch this. There's a lot of resource and other stuff that I put into these sub pages. Browse through them, try to piece together for yourself. I will tell you that some of this information is really not organized perfect like the other classes that I had, mainly because I haven't had the time to do all that. And as you know, you're probably going to be my last batch indefinitely. I really don't know if I ever want to do this again of teaching because it takes a lot of time away from the family. But if the kids get busy and then I get bored, I might come back into this again. So anyway, um, let's start from this particular page here and go over a few things. So today's objective is to understand what is API, why and how to test API, There's manual testing of API. I'll show you how to do those. And there is a test automation way of testing API, and we'll talk about that. So let me open up Notepad and show a few things to you. Now, if I were to go into my computer, this location here, File Explorer, all the files and memories are managed right here. Let's say if I go to my computer and then users folder or program files folder, and then let's say Java JDK19 bin right here, and there's some stuff right there. And if I click here and copy that, I'm just going to paste it right here. What this is a location. It's like an address, like an address to your house. For someone to go in and find something, they have to go through these country, state, city, and then neighborhood, and then the house or something like that, house number. So the computer works the same way. You want to find something, you want to get something, you got to go through these address scheme. But the address is not written like the address of your house. It's written in this kinds of format, which tells you exactly where to go. And that :C tells you which specific memory spot. In this case, it's a C drive. And then in the C drive, you got a bunch of folders in there. You go to program files folder. Now you understand this. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you actually go to a website, you are actually also going into a computer's address. For example, if I go to, let's say, um, Priceline.com, all right, this Priceline.com is actually an address to another computer, to another folder inside a computer. And that computer is called a server. Reason it's called a server is because it serves people. It doesn't really do anything for itself, it serves the others. Now watch this. If I click on hotels, look at this. Let me copy this right here. Y'all can unmute yourself. So suppose I paste this right here. Hang on a second. Sun just went. All right, so you will notice it's kind of similar. Look at this /, and then there's that hotels. And we had this /, but don't worry about it. I mean, / doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. It's telling you, go to this address, and inside that address, go to the hotels folder. And there's something there. And we're accessing that. Now you may be asking, well, how come it doesn't have C colon? And why does it have this .com? Why not something like this? Well, that's where the domain name comes in. Really, honestly, their computer address is not like this. The computer address is like this. But what they did is they went to a domain company and say, hey, I want to buy a domain name called Priceline.com. And I want from here to here to be Priceline.com. So what the company does is company will register this address and mask it. So there'll be a mask on top of this. So instead of that, it's going to become like this. It will mask it and take that out and do that. So in the back end, basically, whenever anyone types in Priceline.com, they're actually going through a C drive of a computer, of a server, with various folders where exactly the hotels remain. Okay. Any questions so far on this idea? Okay. So now that you understand that this is nothing but an address, well, guess what? Your computer, wherever you go, that location, let's say hotels, reaches to that server and returns information to you. Information that the developers of that company stored in that hotel's folder. So what you're looking at right now in here is the stuff, the HTML code, the HTML file, the other stuff, other codes and everything stored inside that hotel's folder inside Priceline that you just accessed, and it showed you this. You probably remember this from the HTML class we had, where we had our HTML file inside a folder, and if we opened up that folder in the browser, if we put in that address of that, the website showed up. This is the same thing, except you are actually going into a company's web server in their computer and going into their specific location to get this stuff. This location is often called an endpoint. Okay, because it's going far out there, and an end, it's going to hit a dead end, and it's going to come back with information for you. Okay, now you probably also remember this client server idea. One moment. Client versus server. Well, this term is only used for understanding who is talking to who. So client is us. It's our computer, individual computer, trying to access information. Server is a large computer that provides or delivers information. Right? So me using my laptop right now, trying to access Priceline.com, I am actually client. My laptop is client. And I am making a request for information to the server, which is a Priceline.com server, and they're sending back information to me. Right? Now, clients have two things. One is called UI or GUI. Who can tell me what that stands for?
It's user interface.
Hmm?
This is user's interface or graphical user's interface.
Correct. So user interface or graphical user interface. What that means is a beautiful, wonderful, organized, human readable data or an interface. Interface is just a face that we look at, and inter means like you communicate with that face. So our own face communicates with this particular computer interface, and that's this Priceline.com. This Priceline.com looks beautiful, colorful. All of that is designed so that we people that don't have any computer knowledge don't have to worry about, and we can easily interact with it. Okay. Now, computer is not that simple. It communicates in a very mathematical, very concise ways, in a dirty, ugly ways that normal humans don't understand unless they have the technical knowledge. So really, this is the beautiful skin face, but right behind that, there is a skeleton. There's an ugly face. There's no meat on it, so to speak, that does the basic necessity stuff. And that's called the API. So you got this UI, you got this API. And that API stands for Application Programming
Interface.
Interface. Yes. All right. So this is the skeleton, the bone behind that beautiful face. You don't see that. You won't see it here, but you can see it by right click and inspecting it. And that's in here inside the developmental pages. So the left side you're looking at is the UI. The right side you're looking at the aspects, not the whole thing, but some of the aspects of the API. Now, you've seen the HTML doc right here. You've used this for test automation. What you didn't use is this network tab right here on the top. Let me get my pen tool out. So in this network tab, well, there's a lot of other tabs right here that developers use, but QAs don't need to. You definitely need to use the Elements tab to do your UI automation. And if you remember, this is called the DOM, Document Object Model. But what you're going to need for API testing is this piece right here called the Network tab. This tab generally summarizes all the requests that are going out and all the information that's coming in, and it will break it down and organize things for you. Let's take a look at it. So if I go to this Network tab, and let me enlarge this a little bit. Okay. What you're seeing here, each of these little entry is a request going out. So watch this. See if I can show you in a smaller. Okay. I would like for you to look at this right now because Priceline is complicated. There's a lot going on, and I don't want to throw you off. But I got this one tiny request that's going out that I would like you to look at. So this website here reqres.in API users /2 is actually a location in a server that has this data. What format is this data in? Anyone?
JSON.
It's JSON, correct. And look at these folder schemes. So if you go to users /2, you can probably tell that it's picking up user number 2 data and displaying to you. And look at this ID2 and stuff. That means if you go one step back from here, you might get all the users. Look at this. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, just 6. 6 users there. That means you could also do a /1, you'll get data back. 6 data back. But 7, you won't get anything. Well, there's there. I don't know how it's showing up. Let me see.
It is
100.
there?
Yeah. There you go. No data.
No.
So somehow it had. What about 8? Well, there's data. So let's put it 100. And there's no data. So let's play around with this for a little bit and I'll show you what's going on here. So let's say if I do 2 and hit enter, watch what happens on the right side right here. This one line entry goes in as a request. So this goes in as a request. This website asks the server saying, hey, can you give me data what's in there? And if you open this up, you can see where they went. First, look at this top part right here. There are several tabs right there. I'll go over them. First thing, request URL. And there's that URL that you actually went in right here to get that data from there. Second thing is saying request method. We'll talk about more. This one is called get method. It's basically just getting information. Then it has a status code, which I will also talk about today and explain what this means and what's a good one, what's a bad one. There's a lot of other information you're not going to need. So this first 3 information is very important that you need to understand and know what that means. And if you scroll down, sometimes you may have a password or authentication down here, which I don't have the scope to even show you today. So just ignore that for now. And when you get the job and you get stuck and you're like, oh, I need the authentication information stuff, and you can't research and find yourself, I will have a one-on-one with you and then give you the codes and push you forward. Then there is this preview part. And in the preview, what you have is basically this data. There it is. In a little more organized way here. Okay. All of this data is, by the way, here. That support data. It's the JSON looks a little bit cleaner, better. But if you look at this right here, there's that support heading to keep REQRES free. Right there, text to keep it free, and that information, some other information. So basically this information is put into the JSON packet. Over here is organized and displayed a little more pretty way, but this is exactly the packet that has been transferred from the server to your computer. That's how it goes from one place to another. It's dirty, it's messy. You can also click on response and you will see that response in that dirty, messy way in one line. Let's look at all the users and see what happens if we do it that way. There's that. If I click on this, it gives me these tabs. Go to the header, get request 200. There's a preview. Here's data. If I open that up, now it's broken into 5 or 6 pieces of data. And you can open these farther and see information within. Okay, a little more readable way. No problem. If I look at the response, I'm going to get all of that in one line like that. You really don't need to use this or this in this case, just header, preview, and response to view this information. This API is called, by the way, users. The API goes in from the backend and gets data from you. Any questions so far on this? All right, let's see if we can get understand Priceline. So here's Priceline, and as you can see, there's so many things, so many requests going out. How are we gonna do what? Well, every single image that you see is also going through these calls to get the image. So that's why there's a whole lot of these. But let's say if I go to Houston and I put in a date and find hotel, I need to inspect this page. And there's too many. I'm just going to try to mimic something that's going to give you only few to look at. This button here, you can clear your this network page and go from there. It's still coming in because there are some images not loaded yet, and so it's still communicating like these. All right, so I'm just gonna clear these. Let me see. Yeah, I want to clear this. All right. So here I am going to open this up and just change maybe one thing here. I'll do 2 rooms. Now watch this. The moment I'm going to click done, it's going to send out a request and get information. Not the ones that are automatically happening here, but I want to look at which one going in right after I click the done button. So I'm going to clear this up, click done. Well, there's a whole bunch actually. And then it comes back. All right. So that one particular request just goes through a whole lot. It's going to be very difficult to pinpoint. But what you can do is you can just check one of these, and one of them is going to list these hotels that it picked up. And generally, it's going to have some information that you can easily tell from it, like search item. Take a look at this one. If you go to preview, or response is going to be like that. If you go to preview, if I open this up, I see these 9 things. But these are not hotels because look at these. The first one, item 1 is like Discovery Green, Houston. Second is Woodlands Waterway. These are not hotel names. So that particular call just brought in some other information that are more like attractions inside Houston, but not the hotels. There is one call right here that is going to bring in these hotel names and get populated. And it's going to be very difficult to find. It's going to be needle in a haystack right now because there's so many. But let's say if you work for that company, they will tell you that, Stanley, this particular API, which is this endpoint right here, where your developer is working on, and that endpoint is supposed to bring in all the hotel names, and you're supposed to test it. Now, why is it important to test? Well, the developers are working for these endpoints. If these endpoints are not bringing in the proper data, then that information is not going to get displayed properly in the UI. That means if this is bad here, it's going to be bad here. Garbage in, garbage out. Therefore, for you to test this, you have to validate data. But there's several layers of validation. First of all, not always this is going to come back with data. So your first thing is, does it go and does it come back with some data? Let me show you when it doesn't. If I go here, you just saw earlier, when I tried to put in 100, users/100, and hit enter, it did not bring in any data. And look at this. This particular thing was blue before. Now it turned red. And look at this number right here. All this time it was blue or green and it was showing 200. But now it's saying 404. So 404 is supposed to mean something. We'll talk about that in a second. And you got no data, so that's a problem. Suppose if you are supposed to test this and there is supposed to be at least 1,000 records coming in and displaying to you, and you test it, your first test is going to be, okay, am I getting a response back? So if you test that endpoint, you're getting response back. This would be your first test. You test with, like, let's say number 2. All right, I'm getting a response back. It's coming back with data. So data is good. It didn't fail and it came back. That's your test number 1. Test number 2 is going to be, okay, I'm going to try to see if I can break it. So what if they said that there's supposed to be 1,000 pieces of data? I'm going to try like 500. And then you get this. Well, immediately it's a failure. You found a bug. Somehow, if there is 1,000 data, 500 should give you number 500 data, and it's not coming in. You would report that as a bug and create a bug ticket. With this particular information that you see, how are you going to communicate to the developer? You are going to copy this information. You can take a screenshot. You can show him the status code right there. You can tell him that there's no data coming in and just create a bug ticket for them. The other thing is, suppose the data came in, but the data is not accurate. So let's say we go number 6. This is good. The request is going in fine. Status code is fine, is green. All right. But somewhere in here, this is supposed to be John, but it's coming in as last name Ramos. Well, guess what? You may have to validate that data that comes back and then it pass or fail it based on accuracy of the data. For a real world scenario, this price line right here, suppose you do a request like this, you check and test it, and it's supposed to come back with names of the hotels, but you end up seeing names of the cars or car companies. Well, then that's a fail, and you need to inform the developers and they made a mistake and they're going to fix it. And this happens a lot. It happens a lot. That's the whole point of API testing, and a company needs this a lot. You not only have to test the UI, but you may be required to test the API. Now, a lot of the QAs, because it's kind of technical stuff, they don't know how to test the API. So then who tests it? Well, the developers themselves, they do some level of testing for them. And the QAs only do UI testing, for example. Now, if you are the QA who knows how to do API testing, then of course you can take on that task of API testing from the developer. Well, you're like, why would I do that? Why do I want more work from me? Job security is what you want. If you do all that stuff, company depends on you and you have more job security. Number two, if you do the testing yourself from the API side, then you have control and you can see if there's any bugs. Developers might make mistake or they might skip the testing. Why would they skip testing? Well, they don't want testing. They want to just create. They don't want somebody to find problems in their code. If you ask a 10-year-old to grade their own essay from 0 to 100, they're going to try to grade it 90 and up, maybe even 100. But you try to read it and say, "Oh my God, this is horrible. Should get 70, maybe 50," but you're being sympathetic. Well, that's the same case with developers. You cannot rely testing work with the developers. They will cheat, they will not do it, or they would do it poorly. There will be bugs, and guess who gets blamed for it? The QA is going to get blamed first, saying, "Hey, how did it slip out of your hand and go into production environment?" So that's why a QA should be testing the API as well and making sure they work. Now, one of the benefits of API testing, where's my notepad? Please hold on one second. Sorry about that, I'm back. So benefits. Well, the ugly part we saw is very dirty, and you still don't know how to test this stuff, but I'll show you, walk you through that. Here's a great benefit. API testing is super fast. Unlike UI testing, which will kick off your test run, open up a browser, you're going to have to log in, you're going to have to click through several pages, menus, set up a form, fill out a form, hit submit, and then check to see, go to another page to see if the contact created. How long is it going to take, your test case? maybe between 1 to 5 minutes. Hopefully you designed it very well. You can bring it down to maybe 90 seconds. Maybe like 50 seconds. All right, you're awesome test engineer. You got it down to 50 seconds. That same test that's 50 seconds on the UI, it's going to be maybe 1 to 3 seconds through API testing. Understand?
Yeah, I agree.
1 to 3 seconds. Why? Because you don't have to navigate, you don't have to go anywhere. You just ping this endpoint and you get the data. And Java is going to validate that data. You take this data out of here, you test it, check, make sure expected and actual, you create an assert and you validate and you're done. Very fast in seconds. Okay. The other good thing, because it has no UI, that means no element locators. What happens to the element locators once in a while? No expat. What happens to the expats? Do they always work?
No, no,
They
sometimes
don't.
it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. It breaks. Then you got some other issues, like you got weights. If the server is slow, you did not put a proper weight, your test keeps failing. Your test keeps failing because of the design. If it's a UI test, you got this expats and you got a weight, you have weights. Uh, you don't have to deal with any of that for API testing. That means you design the test once, you set it, and you forget it. That baby is going to run and test it. You don't ever have to update it unless the endpoint gets changed. Then you go and change that. But you don't have to deal with whole bunch of element locators. It's just one endpoint. Okay. Also, the code, much less. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like sometimes it's one line, right? Maybe 1 to 5 lines. That's it. Honestly, it is easy. It's like crazy easy. If you get it, but you have to practice a little bit because it's weird. The code is very weird. But it's systematic. I'll explain to you if I have time today all the way. Let's see where I can end up. So just keep that in your mind. I want you to talk about this because when you go in an interview and they ask you about API testing, they already know this stuff. But if they hear these words from you and you talk like an advocate, like you own it, like you know why API testing is good, and you have an opportunity, you try to just kind of throw it out there, they're gonna think you're genius. They want you. You're gonna be like hot cake that we want this guy because our team we're gonna win kind of competition if I have this guy in our team, you know? So own it like that. Even though you don't know stuff, just own it like that. They're not gonna ask you to demonstrate in front of them. It's impossible. It's all gonna be verbal. So own it. All right. Any questions so far? Now I'm gonna go into deeper.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is like you said that UI is the client has two sides, right? UI and API. So if we do the regression test, everything, it's the same representation of the API. So why we need to do the API testing? What's the difference? Like why?
Actually,
Because it's the
very
same thing.
very good question, Stanley. I'm glad you asked it. There's two things. One is the API. The API is the piece that communicates back and forth to the server, from the server to the client. But the question comes in, the amateur testers will be like, I know API testing. I don't need to do UI testing. So they're going to be like, I am better than everybody, right? But that's actually not a good approach. Here's why. It's good to do API testing. I would say if there is an endpoint going back and forth from server and you are able to test it, go test it and see if that's working or not. Why would you do that? Because it's fast. Because you can run that maybe 500 endpoints. Okay, let's say Priceline.com in this page has 30 endpoints. Cars page have 30 endpoints. Cruises page has 50 endpoints. Whatnot. All of those areas, you create a test automation. You got like 500 endpoints. You can run that test and it will come back to you in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. It tested the entire server endpoints, letting you know whether something is broke, whether somebody broke something. That is awesome. That is awesome. But that doesn't say that you don't have to do UI testing. Can somebody tell me why? Want to take a guess?
Uh, I guess that API testing is from server side and UI testing is from the client side. Is it like that?
No, you're still testing it from the client.
I think.
But
So, okay.
Yeah, please go. So I think maybe the elements that was created, whether that match with the API or not, that might be another
yes.
reason.
Yes, you said it better than I could have. I was actually running out of words. What Stanley just said is, let me talk about it. What he's saying is, let me see if I can trigger this first. I hate it that it goes into another page. Let me try something else. Google. Let's say this. Ah, Yahoo. I'm obviously not demoing an easy page. Let me try this. Uh, what was that one of those free testing sites that I gave you guys?
It's sourcedemo.com, Parabank,
Sauce. Sauce demo, right? SAU.
yeah, CE.
All right. Yeah, these are much simpler. So we're gonna get something here and log out. Log in. Unfortunately, these things are not designed well at all. Reset app state, all items, out. Try. I can't really demo you, but I can explain this to you. Notice what happens each time I click something. Look at all this happening right here on the side. And I can click here, forgot password. Look at this. I get a whole bunch of these network communication that goes in and out and it comes back. So let's say that you tested these calls and they came back with 200 and they're all good. But these calls may not correctly be connected to these proper buttons. Well, how would you figure that out? There's no way for you to figure this out unless you really test the UI. So I had a situation before where I had a button and I happened to create two tests. I had a same feature, same, let's say, reset password feature. I had one endpoint right here that I know that was a submit endpoint or reset endpoint. So I use that endpoint through API test and I put in the new password and then I sent it out and it came back saying success. And then I had a test case that was a UI test case going through this and then reset and then it came back and said failed. Okay. Now let me explain what that means. So because I had two test cases, this one took like 2 seconds. And my UI test case with Selenium took me maybe like 2 minutes. Why 2 minutes? Because I had a wait involved and that waited longer if it failed. So because if it failed, it was waiting for the element and the element didn't show up, so it took 2 minutes. So I compared the two. I was like, okay, what's going on here? How come this is passing, but this is failing? So this is a pass, this is a fail. Why? Well, I saw that there's a bug on the UI where this reset button, the developer did not code it properly to make that call. It was calling something else. And therefore, the password reset wasn't happening from the UI. Well, what's the implication? That means if you only had API tests and no UI test, your UI could be broken and you would never know it until customer finds out it doesn't work for them and they complain back. So that's why you must also have UI tests just like a user, making sure that beautiful interface that the developer designed also work. You cannot say, okay, API is better, it's faster. I'm only going to do API and I'm not going to do UI. That will fail you. You will have bugs. But you should have a balance of both. You should have API, you should have UI. Why would you use API? You can use this for a smoke test real quickly in 10 minutes, ping everything, and check make sure it's coming back with all 200 response or all success response or not. That will be a quick thing. Every time you validate a ticket, the developer wrote a code in dev environment, you kick off the API test automation and you check. Comes back in 10 minutes. You're like, good. His story looks good and he didn't break something existing, and I found out in 10 minutes. Now, if you run the UI tests, there's like a lot of UI regression tests in there. It could take you 1 hour. Well, should you be running that every time? No. It could take a long time for you to go in and check all that stuff. But every day, once a day, you should run that and see if the developer broke anything on the UI in the dev environment first. If you test the dev environment and weed out all the bugs from the dev, guess what? Your staging is always going to look green. And you never have to test prod. Well, you should, but you can peacefully rest and sleep tonight knowing that the production environment is perfect because I got my staging environment perfect. And I am really working hard in the dev environment and telling the developer what they broke. So if dev works beautiful, staging is going to be will have the same code, will be working great, and the production is also. Any question?
No, thank you.
Welcome. Let's go into the next, a little bit deeper now, and expand on this idea. So what we had here is, we just talked about the benefits, but again, you should have both UI and API. Now let's take a look at what does request mean. You are going to hear the word request a lot. Okay? Request is when a client sends out a request for getting information or any kind of communication. Okay? So this is client, meaning you, your computer, client asking for stuff. And then you will hear the word response. This is server doing something and or returning stuff, information. Okay? So don't get confused. It's just the English word. We're going to be using this going forward, and you just understand what that means. Now, you as a client have several types of requests you can do that servers will understand. And it's very standard across the entire company. So types of requests. This will be interview question, by the way, guys. There's not much to ask, so people just ask these basic stuff. And honestly, whoever is going to be interviewing you doesn't even know the whole shebang of this thing. Because the only guy who knows about this, who created this, and that guy is long dead. So there is a type called GET request. And this one, only with this kind of GET request, I put a number in there so you can kind of memorize this. First one is GET. Question might also say, what are the types of HTTP requests or API requests? Anytime you hear types of requests, no matter what else filler they put into the question, This is what they're asking for. So this one, get request, will get information from server. Okay. That's what I've been showing. The simple ones, like right here. This is a GET request, as you can see down here. And it only gets information like this and display it to you. Our next one is called POST. Okay. And this POST request is going to add data into the server. What might that be? Well, let's say you create an account. Can't show you here. I wish that the text file site still not working. Yeah, still not working. Anyway, here is a post request. Won't be able to do the post request because it will add data into the server, and the only way to do that is going to be creating a reservation. It's like really booking a reservation. So I'll take you all the way there, and then we'll see what we can do. So suppose we go to Houston, dates, find, and I choose this hotel. Choose the VIP deal, book now. And then we go in here and I put in my information, credit card information, and then there's a submit button somewhere. I think I have to add the credit information first. Oh, right here, complete booking. Move this bar from here. One moment. Yeah. So this button, green button that says complete booking, as soon as I'm going to click here, it's supposed to send out a post request. And right there. Take a look at this and look at that post. So, but it didn't do what it's supposed to do because it failed. It's asking, waiting for credit card information. So I'm going to show you if I can. Okay, won't be able to demo much, but you can see that this request is different. Now you filled out some information and you hit submit. You're asking the server to take your data to charge your credit card and put your name and the date and the hotel information inside their server as a record to stay there permanently. And so if you wanted ever to retrieve that data, you can get it back. So you are posting data. This is a post request because it's called post because you're posting data into their server. Now you might be getting stuff back as well. This post request also might return some data as a response. And you can, some of these have some response. Or maybe these don't because I did not put in the credit card. It did not come back saying, hey, it's done. Yeah, I got nothing coming back. It tried to post it, but it didn't come back with any data in any of these. But seriously, if I were to put in my credit card information and complete booking, there's going to be a request going out and saying post is the method, and it's going to come back with some data that I will be able to see over here. It might say success, your booking confirmation number is so and so, blah, 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 and stuff like that. That's your post request. Add data into server and return information. So there's not a whole lot of post requests, but post really does a damage, meaning it really takes stuff and put it into their server. And that's why it's very hard to kind of demo you guys without creating my own server. Number 3 is called put request. And the put request is basically replaces an existing record. When I say record, it's like one piece of data, like this. This ID number 6 has the email address, first name, last name, and some other information. That's one piece of record. Another piece of record would be user number 5. And here's this user record that has a different email address and stuff. So when you do a put request, you replace something that was already there, and you replace everything inside it, right? There is another thing called patch. Difference between put and patch is that patch will just replace an existing field. For put request, you have to specify everything inside that particular record. For patch records, it's smaller. You're just saying, hey, I just want to patch up this name from John to Michael. And you just specify that much information. But if you do a put request, you have to write everything about John and his email and all of that. You have to provide all of that in JSON. Okay. And last one is called delete. So there's 5 of them, and it's delete data. When would you use that? Well, suppose you have a reservation in Priceline. And if you go in and delete something, like you go to your reservation area and then you hit like, oh, I want to cancel my reservation. Well, that button is going to take you to that delete request. And you'll be able to see that delete method there. And that's also going to come back with information and delete it. All the post, put, patch, and delete work like a GET request, but they are more intrusive. They actually modify data. Modify, add, delete, they manipulate data inside a server. You can probably think of this like database class that you did with me, where you had the data manipulation language, right? Remember DQL? Who can tell me what that stands for from database?
Is it data query request?
Query language.
Mm-hmm.
Language. Data
Data
query language.
Data query
Very
language?
correct. Very good job. This is interview questions, guys. They will ask you. And that basically with this GET request, you are doing the same thing as data query language. And which SQL command did we use? Command word for DQL.
Select.
Correct. Only select. So this GET request is basically the same thing. You are sending a GET request to the server. Guess what the server is doing? Inside the server where you sent, where that endpoint is, which is this endpoint, let's say. Here's the endpoint. Inside that endpoint, your server has some code. Your developer had some code in there to call the database and get the data. And guess what type of code that the developer has? He has a select query. He will take that select queries and get the data from the database and then send it back to you through that HTTP GET request. And that's all that's happening there. Easy to say, complicated, but not complicated if you went to college and learn development stuff. But you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to be expert in everything. Nobody is. You just need to know how generally it works and be expert in your testing field. And this is the DML. What does DML stand for? From the database. Data
Manipulation language.
Yes. Data manipulation language. This time you are really messing around, manipulating data, messing around with data. So these 4 calls right here is doing that. In our company, we have, let's say, 500 endpoints. 400 of them are GET calls. Maybe more, maybe 450 of them are GET calls. And only 50 of them we have is a post, put, patch, or delete. So there's a very few of these, a whole lot of this. So you're going to be testing a whole lot of this and a very few of this. Testing the GET request is so very easy. Testing these manipulation gets a little bit more tougher. But again, there's a whole lot less, so you don't have to worry about a whole lot. Okay? Any question about these requests, different types of HTTP requests? All right, now you understand how pretty much software industry works. I can go on for days on the HTTP. What is HTTP and how does that work? It's all designed by the government and have some protocols there that I don't want to bore you with, but I want to tell you that there is a status code, standard status code, that is adopted across the world, and they have number scheme like this. Anytime you see 100, it's going to be informational. What does that mean? When you get a 100 status code, and what status code is right here? The number that you saw, 200, take a look at this. If I put number 100 record, hit enter, I get a 404 or 404. These data, this status code is speaking to you and telling you what went wrong. I'll talk about that in this now. So the first one is 100. And it actually, the status code goes from 100 all the way to 500. 500s. Okay. I say hundreds because there's a point there I'll make shortly. So anytime you see 100, and that could be 101, 102, so it could be between 100 and 99. Sorry, 199. 100 to 199. Generally, it means server telling you server received data, received your request, and still processing. Okay, still processing information. 200 is the best response we want, and it could go from 200 somewhere between 204 is what I've seen. I have exaggerated here, so I think it might be just 10, 110. They still haven't figured out all the other status code, what they're gonna give it to, and you never really get that a whole lot. You're gonna get a whole lot of this. Most of them, 200 between 204. You don't need to learn everything. This means success. Everything went well. That means server received data, understood what you're asking, and accepted, and processed. Processing done. Then you have these 300s, somewhere between 300, 310. Okay, this is called redirection. That means server received it, but endpoint got moved somewhere else. That means they're going to redirect you to the new endpoint. I hardly see this. I probably saw this once in my 4 or 5 years of career. You don't even have to mess with it. Just know that if you ever see that, all that means that there was an endpoint in this location, but they moved the code to a different location. So when you make that request to that endpoint, it's going to redirect you to the new location. It's not a failure. Okay. It's not a problem either. Then you got this 400 and maybe all the way up to 420. I don't know. I'll show you. Don't have it memorized. This means client error. That means something you did, or not you did, not the user, but on your computer, the developer did something on the UI, not the server, on the UI that client looks at. There's a problem there. That means client made an invalid request, which server failed to complete, came back with incomplete. And 500, and somewhere in there, I don't know what's the range. This is server error. So the problem is inside the server. And this could mean client did made a valid request, which server failed. Sorry. Yeah, server failed to complete. So notice that when the client makes a mistake or there's a bug in the UI, server is going to take that and then won't be able to process, and it's going to fail and return with these codes. But if client use request is good, but the server is like broken, the code inside the server is bad, it's going to return with 500. Questions so far before we go a little more deep?
One thing. Say we got the request when we try to check take fast server, it's showing 404.
Yeah.
So it's not an client error request. The server is the website is there, right? Takefast.com. Okay. So is it an invalid request considered 404?
Yeah. Take a look at this call that we were looking at earlier. I put in 100. The request went into the server. Server came back with 400. I'm not going to say 4 right now. I'll explain that. But it came back with 400. Whenever you see the initial number is 4, that means it's this. Now, if you go deeper into 400, then you know exactly a little more specific what's going on. Now, normally the server is not smart enough to go specific. Sometimes it is. Other times it might say, hey, I don't really know, but I just know that you didn't call my name right. That's why I'm not talking to you. And it might just throw out a 400 and not going to tell you why I don't like you specifically. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to talk to you, and then give you 400. But if you get 401, 402, 403, 404, that means he's being specific. It's like, you know what? You don't pronounce my name right, and that's why I don't like you. It's going to be more specific. Well, this one is specific. This one is telling me 404. That means something. Let me just quickly look at these response. Nothing in it. So what does that 404 mean? Well, we know for sure that the server code is working fine. I did something wrong. I put in a 100. Now, I am manually controlling this, by the way, guys, but see this price line is not manually controlling, it's this button. So what's inside that button? If I click on this button and it goes like this with the 100, it's gonna fail with the 404 or 400. But if this is designed okay, I click on this button, it goes to 106 and it shows me 6 hotels instead of 100 hotels. Yeah, it's going to come back with the 200. And what does this specific 400 mean? Well, you can go to Google and search for something like this. HTTP status code, and you can learn a lot, but I want to give you something funny. Dogs. Take a look at this. Somebody decided to create some images with these codes and for easy remembering or not, whatever you want to call it. And look at this, it starts with the 100, 101, and it tells you a little bit more specific. And you can click on this and it will take you there, tell you a little bit more, and give you a link to even study more. You don't really need to. If you do, that's awesome. Let's go scroll down to 400. We're still in the 300s. There is that 400. Look what it says. Not found. Server came back and said, hey, I couldn't find user number 100. So all that tells us as a QA is that server is working fine. The code is fine. My request that I sent out is bad. The client request is bad. Understand? Okay.
So does it mean like when the data is not available inside the server, but the client is requesting that request is bad request? Is it like that?
Yes, that the client request is bad. Now the other time, the client might request good, and the server has an issue. There's a code inside the server that's not working well. You're going to get 500. Okay. And you can test it, by the way, guys. Anytime you go to a website and you're like, oh, I was there before and it was working, but it's not working right now. What you can do is just click on that website, open up your inspect tool, go to the network, click on it again, and then look into these requests, and you're going to see a 500 somewhere. In fact, you can just see it from here. You will see there's a 500. I can't show you right now because I don't have an example. Maybe the text file site. Let's see. It's still giving me 404, not found. As you can see. This endpoint going into that server, coming back with a 404. So they changed this request. It's no longer a good request. The server is there. I think for security, they just changed it. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, that was the basic understanding of the stuff, and I have it in here. And so you can read about it, notes are there. By the way, they also created a one with called HTTP status cat. If you're a cat person, you can use the cat one. If you're a dog person, you can use the dog one. I always real quickly pull it up and then check. By the way, this 401 is very common. It's unauthorized. So if your website has a permission, like a password or something, and you don't, and you try to access it, you might get 401 unauthorized. So if you ever get that, just know that it's password related. Very common. All right. Now let's look at what are some API tools out there. How am I going to test it? Before we proceed, let's take like 5 minutes break and get some water or whatnot, and we'll come back. I'm gonna try to finish it. Um, I don't know. I'll survey you guys and see. We can go at the most till 1 o'clock. See you in 5 minutes. Is everyone back?
I'm back.
All right. Let's carry on. So now you learned what is API and some basic information and how it works and so forth. But question is, how are we going to test it? Well, there are two softwares out there, very popular. One is called Postman. You must know the names of these. Absolutely a must. If you want to brag about saying that you've been in the market doing this stuff, in the interview, you must know the names. Now, you can't just download both of these and then start learning all of them. You don't need to. That's overkill. You need to learn one of them a little bit to get yourself confidence going, but they will never test you to see if you know it or not. You just need to get your confidence up and going. So I have these two links right here for you to download Postman. I would recommend learn Postman is more popular than SOAP UI. So you can go to this particular link and it will take you to that page where you can download Postman. It's free. And then you can start testing stuff. Really simple. There's also a video down here, Postman tutorial. I found this one really easy from RugHub. If you click on that or click open that somewhere, see. Hello and welcome to tutorial. We are going to start a series for Postman declare recruiters. And here you can open it in YouTube. Okay. If you open this in YouTube, you're gonna see on the right side, he has these series of Postman training. So I gave you the video number 1. When you're done with that, you can watch the video number 2, and then you will see video number 3 and 4 and so forth. Just go through as many as you can while you have this Postman on your computer, and you do some hands-on practice while he is doing stuff. That's all. You don't have to finish them all. You can do one video, maybe 5 videos, the more the better, but it's not a must. But when they do ask you, just say that you had experience with Postman. You use Postman to test your endpoints. Okay. I'm not going to go into SOAP UI. If they ask you, do you know SOAP UI? You say that yes, there's a couple of projects that we did that use SOAP UI in my previous one of the companies that I worked for. But the job that I'm working on, the company that I'm working on, we predominantly use Postman. What you just said is you made the interviewer not ask you questions on SOAP UI right now. And you don't want them to, because you don't have the time to go there and start messing around with SOAP UI. So bring them to Postman, have them maybe ask 1 or 2 questions and you answer and move on. They don't have time to ask you too many questions. They got so many other things that they need to ask you. So they might just ask you a very simple question and you answered and you jacked it and you move on to the next one. Okay? Okay. So there's your tutorial video that you can watch. In fact, I'm going to show you a little bit how it works. So let me do that before I move on to this other tool. So here is Postman. Can you see my screen with Postman black screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a software that either you can use it on your desktop computer or you can just go to postman.com and create an account with them. Like you can sign in and you'll be able to use it on their UI without downloading anything on your own computer. stuff like that. I like to just download a simple version on my computer. Just know that when you're downloading this, I already did, I'll show you. It will give you the option. Here's Postman setup. If you run that setup, yeah, it's not going to allow me. Let me demo it on your screen. So who would like to volunteer?
You can try my one.
All right, making you the presenter. I'm going to also request keyboard and mouse control in case. Stanley, you may share your screen when you're ready. All right, so let me control this. Here, go to my class like that, open up 16, go to API, scroll down, and go to this Postman. You can copy this link, paste it in a browser, download that 64 for Windows. There it is, it's getting downloaded. Click on it to open. It's like a firewall, just there it is. Open that up. Taking some time to think. There's that installation wizard. Stanley, if your computer blacks out and asks you for permission, just say yes. There it is. You're going to get this window here. It's going to say, do you want to create an account? You have an account. You don't need any of that. If you do that, it might give you the UI version on their browser. But do this one. Click down here. It says lightweight API client. And if you click on that, then it will be a desktop version. Something like this. Okay? It's that simple. And you can change the theme. Right now it's on a light theme. You can change it to a dark theme by going in here and go to settings and look for a theme, and you can change it to a dark mode or light mode, your choice. I got it in a dark mode. All of that stuff. You can set up workspace and folder schemes like here, like projects that you saw on Eclipse. Or you can jump right in and start testing stuff right in here. And if you look at this drop down here that says get, post, put, patch, delete, forget about the head, forget about the options. Those don't count. Stick to your 5 things if they ask you. Now this get request right here, now that Stanley, you have this, let me just jump back to my screen so I can continue presentation. So what I'll do is I'll take this endpoint that we've been working with a valid endpoint, that was 2. And I'll take this and go to Postman and paste it here and hit the send button. And look at this. Let me zoom in. Adjust the window. Come on, move out. It doesn't want to move out. So I did the get request right here. I put in that API endpoint and hit the send button. And I got data back. Look at the status code. 200 tells me what time. Gives me the data in a beautiful format. It's very human readable. Also, you got this raw data that came back. This is how the data gets shipped to you. Preview visualization, just kind of the same thing in a different way. Or you click on pretty, it's going to show you the pretty format of that JSON. You can also do a drop down and do XML, but this one didn't come in XML, therefore it won't show you HTML if there is any. But really the communication is going back and forth mainly with JSON. Any question? I'm going to try to do a few more with you, and let's see if we can expand on this application plus the understanding of how we understand things. So this website, reqres.in, has this fake web endpoints for you, and it allows you to do some changes, as a matter of fact. So we're going to try to do those changes in here. Let me see if I can close this window so I can have a split screen. That's not very helpful. But, oh, yeah, we'll do one at a time. So take a look at this. Here's this get requests, and you can click on these get requests, and it will give you this data. Basically, here's the request endpoint that's sent out. Notice it's just the extension. It doesn't give you that whole thing. The reqres in, it didn't give you the whole thing. But if you wanted to create the whole thing, all you have to do is just copy this and paste it here. So let's say if I do /API /users /2. Look at this Janet right here, Janet Weaver. Supposed to get the same right there. Janet Weaver. Janet Weaver. All right. So going back, same thing. What about this one? List resources. So if I do this one here, API and unknown. So if I do /API unknown, hit enter, that resource data that we just saw is right here. Okay. Anyway, we can actually take the same thing from here. So let's say, let's get this resource, and that's API unknown 2. If we go into this Postman, and if I do API /unknown, hit a send, there's my data. Okay. Now you might be asking, well, you can do that on the website yourself. You can just take that and do it here. Why would I need that application? It already tells me it's right here. Well, there's a lot that this application can do that this one doesn't. This one doesn't tell you whether it's a 200, 400, or any of the status code just to begin with. And the data does not show up in pretty format. But in the Postman, your data shows up in a beautiful format. You got this 200, 400 information that comes back. Also, if you ever needed a password to access this data, and I can promise you, no matter which company you go to, you're going to need a password. This is free because it's fake. They're not going to give you access to their data without access key. And there's no way you can put in the password in here to get that data. But in Postman, you have something called authorization. If you click here, you got all kinds of authorization. If you have a username and a password that you need to get into, you can check this basic auth. And then you can put in the username and password your company gives you, saying that this is what you need to use, kind of like the prerequisite or given in your Gherkin test case. You put in the username and password, and then you hit the send button, then you get the data. Like, let's say you hit a send button without a password, and password is required. Can somebody tell me what would be the status code? What could be the status code coming back?
400.
400. Very good, Chisti. What about more specific inside the 400? Who can remember that?
Is it 404?
404 is not found. Doesn't say anything about authorization. Do you remember what I said? Which one is authorization? That's okay. I only touched it like real quickly, so I don't expect you to remember. It was 405. Sorry, 401. Status cats.
Oh yeah,
Unauthorized. Unauthorized.
it shows unauthorized.
This one right here. 401. Because your password is required and you didn't provide, it's going to come back saying 401. It's not going to say unauthorized, it's going to say 401. But you need to know that it means that you need password, or your password is bad. You need to check that. Okay. You don't have to memorize that 401 is unauthorized. Why? Because you have this website that you can go to and easily remember that. Easily read it and then do that. So don't stress yourself on memorization. All right. You saw all the simple GET requests. We're now going to try to do something. We're going to do a POST request, okay? So let's see if we can do this. We're going to go to this site, and here's a POST request, and it does some sort of create, right? So go here. And if I put my name right there, and very briefly, a POST request or PUT request or delete request, anything that's DML, manipulating stuff, not the GET stuff. This is just query. But when you're trying to change stuff, you have to tell them what to change. And that's going to go in JSON format. So you have to send a JSON packet with that change information to the server. Server is going to take it, store it, come back to you saying success or failed. That JSON that you're going to send is called payload. Payload. And that's that payload. So whenever I say the word payload, immediately understand that it's a JSON information that we client need to send it to the server for the server to update in their database. With me so far? there's that payload. This payload is going to go to the server, and server is going to respond back 201. Let's see what 201 stands for. We know 200s are good. Then more specific, 201 is called created. Okay? Created. So something got created there, and that's what you want. So let's take a look at this. Over here, we have this name Morpheus leader and then blah, blah, blah. I think it's a user or something, but I'm going to test this by putting, let's say, Stein. Is it going to allow me to change that?
Probably not.
Well, what's the point then if I can't change it?
And do put
Okay, it's not going to, but we're going to do it in Postman. So we're going to take this JSON, go to Postman. Here's the endpoint. And we know that there is no, if we go to this user number 2, there is no user 100. We send a request. It came back with a 404 not found. That means we can put a user with the ID to a 100. We should be able to post something there. So what if we go to users and we specify 100. This time it's going to be a post request. And here's the body you need to send the payload. And click on raw, change this to JSON. So again, your payload, sorry about this naming conventions. The body is where you want to, like, kind of like a letter. You got the letterhead. Imagine this is like an envelope you're going to send out. It's like an envelope. All right. This whole thing is getting mailed out somewhere. Now, what are you mailing? You're mailing a letter. Inside the letter, you got this head and you got this body. So inside the body, you need to send out the JSON payload. All right. And then you can hit the send button to send it out. So it's setting all that up right now. We're going to go in here. We've already done the post request. We've done the location. Now we're picking raw data we're going to send out and what type. We picked JSON. So we're going to put the JSON body in here. It may not work, guys. I have not taught this before. I've practiced myself way back. I don't use this right now anymore. We got better applications that we designed through Java, which I'm also going to teach you guys. If not today, if I can't get to it another day for sure, which is more powerful. But you need to know this for interviews, because real quickly, if you needed to check something, it's much faster to do it here than creating a Java application for it. So if I go back and get the payload right here, paste it here. Now I can change this to Stein. automation, test automation engineer. All right. Looks like I have everything. And if I hit a send, can't believe my eyes, 201 created. You see that? It gave me a created date. It gave me an ID. By the way, it gave me a random ID. Or maybe there is, 334 already there. So it added to a 335. Well, that means I was able to add my name and job title inside their server. What that means that I should be able to retrieve this data. I should be able to get it back if I ask it. So let's try that. If I change this to a GET request now, and I have that 100, I don't need the body anymore. So if I just go to this particular call, no body required, get rid of that. We can just say none. Just a simple GET request and send it. Damn it, it didn't save it. Either the application doesn't save it, or maybe it's by the ID. No, still 404 not found. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Can't seem to demo you the changes that I physically made. We could go halfway, but
We can't
yeah.
do like fetch or put.
Yeah, we can do put and let's try that in fact. So here's the put. So if I do this put request and take that body right there, let me try something first. We'll do that, but I want to see if I do users and then send, is my name there somehow? No. But maybe I'm calling the wrong endpoint. Let me do a little experiment. What if I don't specify what number and just say users? And then here's the body. And send it out. Now it created, and I did not specify what number. So if I now do a GET request and get all the users, no. My only assumption that maybe the server does not allow people to just come in and randomly add, because they could fill up their data and that could really mess up things. So they have limited to only 6 IDs and things. That could be. Or I'm hitting a wrong endpoint. Let me try some of these endpoints here.
Can you try with put?
Yeah, let's try put. So I'm going to take that, copy. That's the payload. We're going to create another called put request. We're going to go to this same endpoint they're asking, users /2, 2. In the body section, I'm going to go to raw JSON, paste it, change the name to Stein, engineer, and send. It's coming back with the 200 telling me all good. The question is has the name been changed now? How would I see that? So if I were to just do a GET request, this number 2 should have been changed because that's what we got when we did the number 2. Yeah, it's also not allowing me. So can't show you the effect, but you can also delete. You're supposed to be able to delete that. And all you have to do is just go in and hit the delete and you'll get 204 means no content. It's been deleted and it's gone. Let's try to delete one. And suppose I want to delete the second one, Janet. No body required for this. And hit the delete send button. It's also telling me no content. That means successfully deleted. But unfortunately, again, I can't show you the effect because when I do the GET request, it still comes back. It's still there. But ideally, the way you would test it is if you delete it, it's going to be gone. This is going to be gone. So if you had a manual test scenario and they gave you an endpoint, they're saying a customer should be created, updated, deleted through those through this endpoint, and developer just coded it. He's going to create a ticket on this, and they're going to give you a ticket for you to test it. When you get that ticket and you know it's an API, and suppose the ticket is completely empty. So they give you a ticket and they say something on the title of the ticket. You understand it's an API. So the developer created a scenario story title. Develop an API for adding customer. You are the QA to test it. Here's the body of it. And it's empty, completely empty. What are you going to do? You know Postman, you know how API works. What are you going to do here? What's your first thing?
Get data.
You need data. Correct. There's nothing here. They did not write the scenario properly. They did not give you enough information. The developer understood by just that, but that's not good enough for you to test. You need more information. You're going to ask for more information. Okay. Now that you know you need more info, you need to ask for specific info. Otherwise, they will think you don't have the experience. Can you tell me what are those information you're going to need? Anyone? Guys, can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Come on, you got the Postman.
So the information would be the URL, request method, and a status, and something like that.
Absolutely. Your first thing is the endpoint. Okay? Your first thing is the endpoint. Let's write it down. Must have information for API testing. And if they don't give you, now that's the request URL. Number one. Sometimes it's called URI. Same thing. Or you can use the word endpoint. How are you going to ask this? You can say, hey, John, can you give me the request URI that I need to test for this API? Or hey, John, can you give me the endpoint that I need to test for this API? You can also say, what is the API endpoint? I need to test. Doesn't matter how you ask this question. If you use these words, he's bound to give you that API URL. He has it. He's going to just Slack it to you, text it to you, email it to you, doesn't matter. He's going to give it to you like that. Example, that. Because without this, you don't even know where to go or what to test. What next?
The method.
The methods. Very good. Does it only do get? Does it do put? Well, if it does get, it's just gonna do get. If it does put, it's just gonna do put. If it does, uh, post, it's only gonna do post. So you need to ask for what are you gonna be testing it for? If it's a post request, then it's going to be post. And if that's creating the user, then there is also going to be a delete request. So he's going to give you another URL for a delete request. And you have to test the other one for delete. Okay. What else?
Status.
Well, status you already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Status you already know that you need to get somewhere in 201, 200, 202, 203, 204, or some of these. So you really don't need to ask him what status you're supposed to get. If you don't get 200, then you tell him that, hey, your stuff is broken. Understand? But there is one other information you need. Hey, who can tell me
User
that?
info,
Huh?
user information
Yes.
to create.
Authentication. Username, password, or is there a token? Working with username and password is easy. Token, I won't be able to demo you now. Here's username, password. Go to authentication, select basic auth, then that gives you username, password option. But there's so many other ways you can authenticate, and you need to ask him, what do I need to do? Which type? And often the developers use Postman before they code their stuff. They test their stuff using Postman. So they may already have this set up for you. You can even ask them to give you this. There is an import export. Look at this import button. They can also export this. I don't remember how to do this, but there's a button here somewhere. that says export, they know it, and they will export you a file, which you take and import it to yours automatically. You have the test in your Postman, and you don't have to lift a finger. All you do is just click a send button. He already had the password set up for you in there. Okay, all of that option is available. There is one more thing. You may or may not need a payload like we talked about. He's also supposed to give you the payload. Because without the payload, what are you going to do? You're going to make up your own JSON to do the post request. Now, you know you don't need a payload for GET request, but you're going to need a payload for post requests, put requests. You don't need a payload for delete request. Yeah, but if it's a post or put or patch, you're going to need a payload. You ask him for a payload. He's going to go in there and copy this payload JSON. This is very simple. He might give you something complicated. Doesn't matter. You just copy that, put it in there, and then you need to ask him. Well, if it's a post request, you have to fill in this information. All of it. You can even ask him if he has some sample data for you to put in there. And he can give you that. He might even give you that in the payload saying, hey, use this one. You may need to change the name Morpheus to Morpheus 1, Morpheus 2, Morpheus 3. Keep creating more and more, delete more and more, and then see if it's working. Okay? So just be mindful that when you're working there, if they don't have this information, there is nothing you can do to test it. You must have, this is prerequisite. And who's going to give that to you? Developer. And then you can do your stuff. That's all from me from Postman today. Any questions? Okay. The next,
Just one thing.
Go ahead.
Just to understand, some basic thing. Let's say, actually, we are testing the same thing, the thing we did with the Selenium, right?
Some, yeah, kind of, sort of. Like if this post request creates a user by putting this payload is the same thing that the form you filled out on the UI on TechFile's site, where you gave it a name, auto test, blah, 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 some random numbers and names, same thing. So you can automate this with your Eclipse, which I will show you next. You have to create the payload yourself.
Okay.
So inside the payload, this is a string, complete string. Inside that, you save it inside a string called payload. It will be like string payload equals, inside the quotation you put this, and then you inject a random name here instead of Morpheus. And then you take that payload and hit a post request and then check to see if that's available, if that data got stored or not. Okay?
Yeah.
But you understand the idea, right? I know you don't know how to do it, but you understand how to do it, right?
What
Like,
I understood is like,
Yeah.
what I understood is like that basically is the same testing we're doing, but with a different format. Like one we did with the Java Selenium, other one is the API. Is it like
correct.
that?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if we do the say add invoice or something, we can do the same thing in the API.
Absolutely. Yes.
So can we do the testing in Selenium and the API simultaneously?
You don't want to do it in the same project. Yes, you can.
Right.
You want to create two separate projects to do it differently.
Okay. So is there any contradiction like sometimes the Selenium doesn't show anything but API shows it? Does it happen again?
Selenium is nice that it has a lot of, you can take screenshots and you see the UI and you can see failures there. API, there's no screenshots of anything. The only thing that you get back is data. And that data is this number right here.
Okay,
The
so
rest.
another one question, maybe silly. We purchase something from the online service, so our name and the credential is over there, and it's automatically saved. So can I go to that website from where I purchase something like the Walmart, and can I manipulate there in our users for the post or put or catch? Anything can we do?
Yes. Yes. You
Mhm.
can create a
That's
test
good.
automation to go to Walmart website with API testing, and you can log into that particular link to purchase something, and with your username and password in a basic auth, like that,
Mhm.
um, with the endpoint. And if purchasing is a post request, you change it to a post request, find that endpoint that Walmart uses for purchasing, and you hit the send button, it's going to buy things for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll test it.
Now, don't make sure you don't have your credit card in there, because if you mess it up, it might get charged multiple times. Who knows? So, but yes, all of that is possible. Any other questions? Okay. The next thing I want to give you a little touch up, and I'm not going to show too much because we're running out of time here. I'm already 12:30. I got to finish at 1. It's called a command line tool called curl. Now, there are developers that don't want to open up the Postman. They're lazy. Just like you gotta write here, you gotta do this, you gotta hit the send button, blah, blah, blah. But they're more technical. They like stuff like this. Okay? So imagine they just want to say git bash, and they open up git bash, and they've been doing all their Linux stuff right here. So they want to look more cool, and they want to do it here. It is possible. Okay? There is a way to do this here as well. And I would say this is really awesome. You can't automate it. Nope. You can test it, but you cannot automate it. What is automation? Automation is you don't have to lift a finger. You just hit the run button and it will run 200 GET requests for you and give you back. That cannot be done here. That can't be done here. Okay? That can be done in Postman. Look at this. Every one of these I tested, Postman got a list of this on the left panel. And I could create an automated run for this that will run all of this with one push of a button inside Postman. But there is a limitation for this Postman. And that is, I have to actually literally come here and hit the push button. After I create the button, I have to literally push it. to run it. But with Java and Jenkins, you can time it that you don't even have to push the button, that it will automatically push it for you at midnight or maybe at 5 a.m. So the reports are already going to be online on Jenkins. And you come in at 8 o'clock at work, you just pull up the Jenkins website and it shows you the results. You didn't have to lift a finger. Postman, you cannot do that. Postman, you would have to open Postman yourself in your local. Jenkins can do that on a server. That means your test does not even have to rely on your laptop at all. You can go to any laptop and just open up the website. It won't take up your memory space. It won't run it in your computer. It will run it in the server. So that's why Postman is not the best thing, but it is a good thing for you to first test it here. Make sure it works before you go into automation. You don't want to start with an automation that you don't know if this post request even works and gets you a 200. Don't do that. You're wasting your time because you may be making mistakes, working on mistakes. So always first check to see if this is valid. Looks like this is valid, doesn't need a password, is working, giving you 200. Okay, now you're ready to take this into your test automation with Java and automate it there, send it to the GitHub repository, and let your company Jenkins run it and give you a result tomorrow. And you keep adding. Daily you add maybe 2 or 3 of these endpoints. Sure enough, in 6 months, you got like 200, 300 endpoints you're running for your company on Jenkins site. That's what your job should be. So curl is just like Postman, except curl is much faster and you don't have to open up the site, but it's a little more technical and I'll show you. Just be in the know-how of what it is. And if you really love this stuff, go on and download and do it on your computer and start playing with it. Get better even before you get the job. After you get the job, of course, I recommend learn as much as you can because it's powerful. So for you to do curl, there is this site right here called curl.se. Will give you all the information you need. It's all free. You can read about it. There's that download thing. You can click on download. There's a lot of files here. Just do a Control F Windows. There's that 64-bit and click on this latest version 8.2.1 and it will download it for you, run it, and it's gonna start working for you. First, and you also need to set the environment variables. So there is a video here that I have right underneath that part, which says Windows, how to install curl on Windows 10. So if you watch this video, it will walk you through how to do that. Okay. I already did it on my computer, so I'm going to show you how it's done. Now, for you to do that, oh, by the way, in this curl SE, you also have documentation tab, and you got this tutorial. And there's also videos. If I click on the videos, you can watch these videos, or you can read the tutorial, and it gives you example. I'm going to do some of these examples with you. So let's do this. You must have some sort of command line. CMD is okay, not that great. Like if I say curl space dash dash version, if you don't have them, it's not gonna tell you what version it is. if you install correctly in your computer, it will tell you what version it is. So just know that. And if I try to do curl here, it's very simple. All you do is type the word curl, kind of like the git thing that we learned. And here was the endpoint. There it is. This is the data we got back. So I'm going to take this, go back, paste it here, and hit enter. Voila. There's that data. But it doesn't tell me what status code or some other information. It's very, very small, very less. I can do that in Git Bash better. If I open up Git Bash, and say curl and paste that. Excuse me, I gotta copy it again. Where are you? Right there. Curl. You can't do Control V here. You have to do right click and paste. For some reason, the Git Bash doesn't work like that. So it pinged really quickly. As you can see, it took a second. Let's look at this information here. This is going back, giving you the timings and things. And there's that data start. There's the data finish. It did not give me the status code, but I can get the status code with curl. I'll show you in a second. So basic, if you just type in curl and then get that data, then you got something good. It's working. But you remember we did the 100 and we didn't get anything back. So if I did that, look what happens. It comes back with this empty string telling me that there is nothing in there. This is not a good request that went out, but still not enough information. Let's see how we're gonna get more information with curl. Try this -x before and then see what happens. Oops. Again, I'm not an expert on this. There's a U or something. Let's see. It's not working. I need to play with it. I apologize. But I really don't use curl. I see the developers using it. So I know how to download and get you started. That I have done in my platform so far. I have been able to do some curl commands. There's some more, some other things that goes into this particular command that you can add, but you can study this forward. There's that site right here. Just read about this and get that. You can also do a quick Google search and then we'll find out. Curl command example for getting status code. Let's see what they got. Using head option, using include option, and then some examples. It's a lot of information here. Let's see. There's a capital I, so let me try that. In fact, just copy this whole thing and paste it. Well, we got something. And look at this right here. 200, okay. So this dash I is what I'm understanding is returning the status code as well as some other information. Let me try that with my existing. So if I do curl dash I and then copy paste this, now let me just take that. Users. And go in here and paste it. There it is, guys. Let me reduce the size. This did not bring out the data. As you can see, I don't see the user information data, but it's like the header part. But it does give me that 200 status code. Now, if I were to change that to like 100 users, let's see. We know if I do a 100, we got a status code of 404. So if I hit enter with this now, I should expect a 404 somewhere right there. It's not very nice. It's messy, but it's fast. And developers seem to like this one better than open upping the application for Postman. Any questions on curl before we move on? Okay. For this next part, I'm going to need a volunteer. So Stanley, if you want to volunteer, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is now we're going to learn how to do API testing through your test automation. You already have Eclipse, you already have Selenium and everything installed. So we're going to go into your project, existing one, and we're going to try to do this automation and see how that works. So rest assured is what it's called in Java. You might hear this word. What it is under this word called rest assured. They have a group of library of code of classes that you can create and do your methods of doing the get, put, post, data extraction, manipulation, status code validation, all kinds of stuff is already created for you. You just need to know how to use it. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So that information is in here, guys. If you go to 17 and open this up and go to Rest Assured Java, there's that project dependencies. I'm going to have Stanley copy these dependencies into his existing project, and then we're going to start building the code. These are basic steps of how to build a project if you don't have one. Must have JRE, JDK, Maven, Eclipse, you already have that. This is how we created the project. It may have changed a little bit for you right now. This is from old data, so change it as needed. Here's the project name given right there, where we deleted the system packages and stuff. We added the dependencies in the POM. We build a project and make sure we get a build success. That all stuff is here. Then we created the test project and then go in and write our test classes in there. And we go into the class, give it the class name, we finish the class, and here's the code, right? You put this code, make sure it runs. If it does, you're doing good. And then you can start adding more code to that. Okay. So I'm going to walk Stanley through this and demo it to you. Stanley, share your screen when you get a chance. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and Stanley, open up your Eclipse and choose a project that you use Selenium successfully without any errors. I don't want to take up the time on creating a project.
This code is a small code, even out or no?
Yeah, we can do that. So go to test, right click and create a new class. Inside the package. Not there. Inside the package. Go inside the test package. Yes. Create a class and call API test example. All right, very well. Leave this, close everything else. This is where we're going to do our test work. Go to the POM and copy the dependencies from the website. And paste it in here. Now do copy it into
Yeah.
Notepad first.
So we need all those TestNG, no, right?
All three of them. Well, you already have TestNG there?
Let me see. TestNG 7.4, right? No.
You have JUnit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just bring it in. Might get a little more confusing with the two test tools. We'll see if we can figure this out still. All right, go ahead and align the code. Remember that shortcut key?
It's Control Alt F, right?
Either Control Alt F or Control Shift F.
Yeah.
There you go. Now build a project so it pulls all those dependencies. I think if you by saving it already did. Okay, looks like it already did. I saw on the bottom right side, it was pulling it, so you don't have to build the project, but you could not sure if it's going to be in the systems. Maven dependencies. Go to Maven and look for rest assured. JSON simple. And there's that rest assured. All right, you already have it. Okay. Now, copy that first piece of code. Well, yeah, go back to my site and all the way down. Yeah, there, right there. Don't, yeah, just take that, put it in a notepad. It's a method. We call it test1. Notice there is no public, there's no nothing. Not really needed. Those are optional if you want to or not. Paste it. All right. And right click and import rest assured. Not there. That's in front of the class. You want to put it on top of the test. And yeah, right there at the rate test. And choose the one that I prescribed here. You got two of them. So which one did we bring in? Is that the one?
This one?
Check again on the site. Which dependency did I give you? Scroll up.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Choose test engine.
Yes.
Yeah. And run this. We just want to first make sure that your project is working with this. If not, then we got a problem to resolve. Okay, it's passing. All right, I want to do one more thing. Let me take over control of your mouse.
What we checked now, we just check the website and is there or not.
What we just checked is we made sure that your that the project works for the rest assured.
So maybe I need to update the driver, okay? Chrome driver.
No. You're all good. This is telling me that you got this green result right here. This is telling me that this whole thing is ready when we're working. Now you're ready to do some coding, okay? And this is what I want to show you. So here's how you're gonna do a test validation. It is as simple as one line of code. What you do is ignore this one. This is nothing. This is just for you to check to see if it's working or not. If you got a red or your project build failure, then you did something wrong with your project build up. That's what it means. So the way the code works is it starts with like a gherkin. You write the word given. Okay. I think I need to bring that. Given dot. Not recognizing save. Yeah. Okay. So write rest assured dot double S dot given, you will notice there's a lot come up. And there's that given. Now over here, you could have like a header, something called a header. I'm throwing you off completely. So let me just back up and do the simple step first. Just do rest assured dot get, and there's your get method. And inside that get method, you take the API that we were working on. Bummer. I won't be able to copy paste that.
I'll do it.
Yeah, let me paste it for you in the chat box. All right, Stanley, copy paste that in there and watch how easy this is. Semicolon. And let me close this, take it over from here. I want to block that. And all I have to do is hit the button done, run. And if it comes back as green, and we got green right here, that tells me that everything is good, no problem. If it came back as red, then that's a problem. So for example, if I do users.to and then run it, sorry. As you can see, 1 ran, 0 failure, passing 1. We're good. How about if I do 100?
It might fail.
It's not failing. It's still passing. So that validation is not going to work. What we're going to do is, I'll take you to the validation in a second, but I want you to see how we're going to manipulate this data here. When you do get, that call does go out, but it really doesn't do anything else. But if you do a dot and say get status code right there, and take that method, it will get the status code for you. But again, if you don't print this out, you don't know what it is. So what you need to do is you need to save this status code in a string. String status code. Okay. And it's throwing an error. Why?
It should be in double quotation
Okay,
mark.
it's asking me to put it inside the integer in status code. Okay, no problem. So now if I print out sysout and print the status code, then I should be able to see what status code did I get. Let's do a positive scenario first. Put a 2, run it. There it is, 200. Let's make it a little more cleaner. Like that. So there's your status code 200. If I did use 100 and run, oh, look at this. 404 not found, like we saw before. Okay, so how would you validate this? Well, you can do it as primitive validation as like this. You could just say assert dot assert equals and not boolean but string or int. Look at this one, int actual, int expected. You can open that one up. Here's your status code expected. You can put in 200. And there's your status code that you actually got, which is going to be 404. And now you can fail this test. If I run it, look at this. It failed. And if you look at the console, it's going to tell you why. I actually put it the other way around. Should be, let me bring this down here. Is it perspective? This should be here. Expected status code is 200, but found 400. Questions so far?
Need to do practice before commenting.
Okay, good. There is an easier way to do this. And that is, instead of this, what you can do, it's built in right in here. You could say rest assured dot given dot get, and you want to choose the one that has this URI there. Put the URI, which was this, in here. Don't finish it. Just say then, and then dot status code, and choose that one, and you put in the status code of expected. Voila, you got one line of code that validates all of that. watch this. If I run this, it's going to pass with a 2.
It fails.
It failed. It's not supposed to fail like that. Let me just quickly check my notes. I'm going to copy some of these imports statement. It's in the notes. You may need to import some of these statements. Oops, sorry. That's not the one. Stanley, copy paste this in the imports. I messaged you in the chat. I'm going to save it. All right, let me try this again. This time, we're just going to use the word given. Run. Still failing. I really don't. Complaining about Hamcrest matters. But I've already, this is the Hamcrest matter right here that I use. Um, can you press uh, uh, Control Shift O? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I gotta figure this out, why this is going on like that. It could be something in his platform. So I have not done this on mine on any of the projects, so I won't be able to show you. But essentially, you should be able to just do it in one line like that. By the way, if you ever wanted to print out the data and you wanted to see what comes back, you can do that. Just gonna change this up a little bit and do it like this. So you could have string, let's say data, and then now go do that call with rest assured. dot get, and then paste that URL. Dot then dot extract. We can extract. Let me see if we can extract that data right away. Dot extract. No. Then dot extract dot body dot, look at this option as pretty string. So if I take that, let me bring it down here because it's like really hard to see. And you're welcome to also do it in individual lines like this. It works both ways. Dot body dot as pretty string and then colon. Now all the errors are gone because all of these together, this whole thing becomes a string response that gets saved right here in the string data. And if we print that out, we should be able to see the data. Nope, it's not returning anything. Stanley, I'm going to copy this, and if you can paste that from the chat box into the URL.
This one?
Yeah,
What should I paste?
where the URL is, line 21.
Here?
Yeah, there's some extra stuff that came in. I can delete that. Let me check that. Yeah, keep going back. One second. This is an API that I did a practice on with another class, and there's that data that came in. And I'm wondering, this might have the name that we try to put in. No, not really. Okay, here it is. Check that out. There's the data that got displayed. Now, let's say if you wanted to validate whether this um, first name here, is Rachel or not, you can also get that information um, with a method that's in here. So watch. You could just take this. You could create a class called response and name it a response equals new response. Import rest assured response. Let's go. Don't create a new, but you take this particular call dot get, just that much, and put it inside a response class. then you don't have to keep using this over and over. You can just use this word response, and that will give you everything that this would have given you. For example, if I, let's say, wanted to say response dot get string or dot get status code, I could get the status code. And if I were to print that out, sys out, and take this response.status code piece and put it in here, delete this junk. Why are you complaining? Oh yeah, status code. I deleted accidentally these methods right here. So if I run this now, if you look up right here, this was the data, and that last piece of code where I was wanting a status code, and that got printed out right here. Okay. Let me see if this passes if I were to do the validation like this. Response dot status code get status code, and then say dot. That's not going to work. What if I were to use the same thing here and then say then and validate it right here? Then dot status code, here's expected is 200. Is that also going to throw an issue? See. Yes, this is going to require a Hamcrest matchers. So Stanley, paste these in the imports.
All three?
All three of them. Okay, let's save it and run it. It's still failing. Sorry, guys. I just think that there is a they probably changed this Hamcrest matchers. It's not probably compatible with this endpoint that we just brought in, this import versus rest assured matchers. Where is that Hamcrest? There it is. Yeah. So not sure why. One thing I can experiment is maybe take this matchers off and bring everything in there. Nah, doesn't like it. Let me research a little. They may have changed
Oh,
something.
it's right. I have an idea. If you listen, if we get the status code and then we do the validation by assert, then can we do it?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, that's
So
the one. The first We did it, and then this is the second method, right? Second way to do that, in one
Yeah,
line of code.
so I mean, really beautiful is like if you do it right here. That way you don't have to create an assert. But you saw that this one worked. So you can do it that way. Yeah. So honestly, I mean, your test case is going to be you could even wrap a lot of endpoints right here. Let me just get rid of this piece of code because it's causing trouble. Let's say if you wanted to wrap a lot of these, you could have um, you could have codes like this. Just 2 lines of code in that case. Just this line response, and then you could say assertion dot assert. Let's try the true this time. Assert true with a string. Did not match. And in here, you could do response dot get status code dot or equal to 200. All right. So imagine these 2 lines of code, and you just have a whole bunch of them. Only thing you're going to change is the get request endpoints. So over here, you could have page 1. Over here, you could have yahoo.com. Here, you could have priceline.com. Obviously, you would have more / blah, blah, blah. And then this is page 2, response 1, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then run it. And then you got all of this passing, but let's forcefully fail one. If we take this one, and run. This is weird.
Make it 1000.
This fourth one is supposed to fail. So if I were to debug this, it's not failing. Let me just do system out and print out response.status code and see what that is. Maybe this condition is bad. Or it's coming back with 200 this time. it's coming back with the 200.
That's
I
my
don't know
wife.
what just happened. So, what if I mess up the piece right there? Take a letter off, or even yar off, and 1,000. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake here. Over here, all of this is gonna be. I'm comparing to something else. This is supposed to be response 1. This is supposed to be response 2, 3, and 4. And now it's gonna fail. Right there. There's that failure. Let me see if there's enough data to tell you. Assertion did not match, and that's right in here. And if you wanted to even just print some more, you could say something like this, plus you take this response, response 4 dot get body dot uh, as string. Put a plus right here. If we can print that out and put it /n, so put it in a different line. Let's see if any body comes back. Any response comes back. We got the failure, okay. Nothing returned as the body. Assertion just said test did not match. But you could probably say get did not match because bad status code found, and we print out the status code here. Get status code. Run it. This is very weird. I don't understand why it's not even printing this part. It's supposed to. I mean, or am I not saving it? Or is it failing even before somewhere?
Uh, check yeah. This is the what is this?
Did not match. So this is failing here.
I think you can comment it out.
Let's comment something out. Yeah. Does it tell me which line number?
89.
89. No. This one. It's failing here.
Or the price line.
That's weird. Okay, run it again. There.
Mhm.
Did not match, bad status code found, 404 as we expected. We saw that way back. And this would go into your report on Jenkins. You will look at it, come back in here. If you wanted to know what line number 57, and you go to that 57 and change that, either it's a bug or you may need to fix this URL, whatever that is. I think that gives you a very big view of what takes 4-5 years for people to go in the industry from universities and then start or even get an opportunity to learn this, because if the company doesn't use it, you will never learn it. And the campuses don't teach this. So, guys, download this, start working on it, practice. I kid you not, you can get to a point where you surpass me. As you saw today, that I was struggling to even demo this to you because there's just so much. And I just can't remember on the top of my head. It's going to be always like a trial and error to figure these things out, but it works. And it validates with only 2 lines of code. That's powerful. So if you can do this for your company, they're going to pay you that $100,000 for you to write these 2 lines of code and validate. If they have 200 endpoints, think about you just with these 2 lines of code and a simple project that I just showed you how to build, how much value, how much test capability you can bring for your company. I'm going to leave it right here. Any last questions before we end the day?
No, thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a wonderful weekend and reach out to me with your next step because I'm ready here waiting. I don't need to see any documentation. You don't need to turn in anything to me. Just call me and set up a one-on-one interview. Don't feel like, don't say that, oh, I got to study and then come back. I'm not ready. No, the mock interview is not for that. Mock interview is for you to find out what you need to study. So if you're waiting for mock interview, you're wasting your time. Come back, do mock interview, study, come back again until you feel like you've done it. Then post your resume up and do send your final resume for me to look at. Thanks, guys. Have a nice weekend. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
You
Bye.
too. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.